Okay, we have Gearbox updates on the Mokai 2.1. Now, granted, this is only applicable to the models that have a grease fitting. The newer ones don't have the grease fitting, and they have actually updated the designs to not have this problem. So, if you have one of those, you can disregard this. But on this design, this is where the pump shaft comes through. This is installed in the hull. This is the back of the gearbox. You won't see those O-rings when it's installed. That goes into a little snout that goes in the intake tunnel. So pump shaft comes through. It engages those seals. There are two seals in there. Two seals. They're like this. They're opposing each other. So that's what the pump shaft goes into first. That side, and then there's another one. This one. That's opposing that the pump shaft has to go through. Secondly, and since there's nothing to guide the pump shaft into this seal properly, it will damage that seal. Then when you use the grease fitting to pump grease in here, it's like a check valve. These seals are designed to keep things from going out. So if you directly inject grease in between the two, it has to go somewhere. So if the seal isn't damaged, it will either get blown out and inverted, and then it will be damaged, or it just builds up pressure and you stop pumping grease and you got lucky and it'll bleed it. But in this case, the seal was damaged, so when grease was injected in there, it went towards the gearbox. And the oil seal that was on this shaft which is behind this bearing. So the bearing is installed on there, and the bearing's installed in the housing, and then the seal would be on there. And that keeps oil from leaking out of the gearbox. It also keeps water from getting into the gearbox, in addition to the two seals that are in there to keep water out. So whenever that pressure was bled through that damaged seal, it went towards this seal. It actually pushed it out of its bore. So when I disassembled this, that seal was pretty much like that. It was just sitting there. The pressure from the grease had pushed that inner seal lip up against the inner bearing race and had caused it to deform, and it literally reshaped it and eroded it away. So now, instead of it being a seal, it just falls on there. So I put a guide washer in there. It's already installed. I've done videos on this before, so anybody that's familiar with that has seen this. But there's a nylon acetyl resin washer that's the same size as the pump shaft, and that is right in between those two seals, which guides the pump shaft directly into the center of that second seal, preventing it from doing any damage. It has to open that seal up because it will guide it perfectly right through the center. So that's already been done on this, and that will stop the problem of damaged seals. And then quit using the grease fitting. This grease fitting should not be used unless the pump shaft is out of the boat, in which case you could just put grease on the splines yourself and grease it manually. It's not a big deal. There's no binding and grinding and flexing like the older models. These 2.1s, I don't foresee any issues with pump shaft stripping out. So there's really no reason to have a grease fitting there. I mean, it sounded good on paper, but in reality it was a problem. But we got a new seal here, and I will modify the lip, give it a little bit more of a chamfer to receive, so that the seal can receive that without damaging, risking damage of the seal during assembly, because this is all done blind. Once the seal's installed, then the bearing's installed, and then the shaft gets installed inside of that, and you can't see if the seal is taking that properly or not. So give it a little bit more of a chamfer, and then problem solved. You won't have any more gearbox issues.